George Lynch, and you are tuned in to DJ Hawk.
Hey everybody, how you doing? This is DJ Hawk with Metal World Radio, and I have to say that I am extremely excited about this interview. Right now I have, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, with that introduction, I would expect somebody like, Elvis or, the Beatles, but I'm just George Lynch, so there you go.
Oh, man.
Elvis couldn't be here, so here's George Lynch.
Oh, there you go. The best of the best?
I don't know about that, but thank you.
Well, yeah.
I'm trying.
Very good, very good. Right now I see that you have the heavy hitters coming out for you now.
Yeah, we got a new record that Jeff Pilson and I collaborated on Cleopatra Records, and it's a collection of covers. And that sounds kind of maybe a little mundane and uninteresting on the surface, but actually what we did is we took 2 songs from every decade, songs that we grew up with, songs that we influenced us, and in later years, songs that we just loved listening to. And it just had a freaking blast recording all this stuff. And so it's this real diverse, interesting listen. It's really, it sounds like 10 different bands. We just basically used the studio as an instrument, as a palette. I like to think of them as pieces of art, because there are just so many unexpected things and so many things to listen for and interesting variations on and adaptions of these classic tunes that we've loved, all our careers, and we're able to recognize these great songs that influenced us in a big way. Some of these songs, we've been dreaming about recording them for 4 decades. I remember sitting around with Jeff going, we're huge Rufus fans. We're just saying, God, let's do something like this. Let's do this song, and it would influence our writing and our sounds and things like that, and our vocal melodies and things. And there we are, actually recording the song, So for us, it was real personal.
It's really cool because, you're pulling out songs like Lucille and, of course, I Could Feel the Earth Move.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sitting here going, wow. I'm a Jukebox Hits, fan too, So it's really cool to see that you tapped into what influenced you and you created them into a more metal way.
Yeah, we ended up pretty much making things heavier, which is why the record is called Heavy Hitters. Duh. But, for us, considering the kind of music we're known for, when we did, let's say, You Got the Love, it's a funk song. We just did it funk rock, we did it like Van Halen style, let's say,
Oh, there you go.
But what we tried to avoid was not doing the songs like they were originally done. Because what's the point of that? And you hear that a lot. I heard that a lot when somebody does a cover and it's just like, didn't change anything. It's like, well, why did they do the cover? I don't understand. What was the point if you're not going to build on it? And some songs are very hard, and I think some particular artists it's difficult to, if not impossible, to do a variation on the song that sounds anything worth doing. Because the song was so perfect to begin with, Like Prince songs are like that to me. How do you improve on a Prince song?
Right.
I think the best luck we had with that, doing a variation, a well-known song, and reverse engineering it and doing it in a way that was valid and worthy of a cover was the first track on the record.
John Osborne.
Mm-hmm. And so far removed from the original, which I love, the fact that we're able to pull that off. And that's not an easy thing to do necessarily consistently, and I don't think we did it consistently throughout the whole record. I think it was a little bit of hit and miss there, but for me, there's a couple of spots on the record I wish I had another shot at this. But I got my 5, there's 5 songs like right off the top that I love. I'd never get tired of listening to them. One of Us, You Got the Love by Rufus, Chaka Khan, Ordinary World, Duran Duran. I was never a Duran Duran fan, but I always loved that song. And Jeff loved that song. It was very epic. Yeah.
Right.
And music, the Madonna cover. I fucking love listening to that. So I use that, I'll go jogging or running, I work out, put it on my headphones and just gets me pumped up. Yeah, those are my favorites. Couple that I could have probably picked a different song. But that's the problem, is that the beauty of this process is, not everything's going to be gold, but you're going to get enough gold to make it worthwhile. But there's some things that, it's an experiment, and it's a process, and you don't really know what's going to happen until you do it.
And during this time, it was like all of you got to sit down and kind of brainstorm which songs. Out of all the songs that you went through, it was all of you guys coming together, Which were the one songs that didn't make it to the album that you wish could have?
Uh, well, wish could have. That's interesting because I mean, literally had hundreds of songs we were considering. Because you got to imagine, we're talking about 5-6 decades of music,
Right.
from the 50s to current. I mean, imagine the volume of potential song picks. It was almost unlimited, so mind-boggling. So it was really, really hard to distill it down to any particular couple, handful.
Right.
But having said that, yeah, there were. I would have probably not done the REM song, "The End of the World as We Know It." We just did that because it was pretty topical and sort of defined what we're all going through collectively right now, or especially back then. Although things did change today for the better, thank God.
Right.
So The End of the World as We Know It does not really move me. I was never an REM fan, but I was kind of outvoted on that one. I feel the Earth Move just doesn't. I didn't think that translated, and again, wasn't really a huge fan of that song to begin with. So, unless you really, really are, enthused about a song, it's kind of hard to get behind it and get ideas around it. So I think those two. Then the other one that I'm kind of not sure about, but I don't know if it's doing Champagne Supernova. It was kind of a lazy pick, I think. I think we did a good job on it. I don't know. It just seemed like a lazy pick. And then I don't know. I think that I got a couple that are just sort of. I think they're good, but they're not. They're not setting me on fire, but they're cool. And it's Apologize and Nowhere to Run.
There you go.
Yeah. They're good. I like them, but they're not. They don't get my adrenaline meter pegged.
Yeah, they don't feel that vibration, huh?
Yeah, but One of Us, Got the Love, Ordinary World, Music. Actually, I can't. I will never get tired of listening to them. So what I'm hoping is that down the line we'll be able to do more of these because they were so fun to do, challenging but fun.
Right.
Because you don't have to compose new songs from nothing. So that kind of is already done for you. So you have the time and to actually enjoy the process a little bit more without the pressure of having to construct something from scratch. So it's a little bit easier to do an album like this and allows for a little bit more just playing with it, versus, this heavy kind of like concentration where every single moment is just, you're up inside these songs that you're trying to create from scratch. So it's a really fun process, actually. And I love being in the studio anyway. So, and Jeff and I live right down the street from each other, and we've been working together for 40 years, and we love working together. So we're thinking of doing a whole series of these where we would do one album for every decade.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Yeah, either that or maybe an album for every genre. An album just dedicated to R&B songs.
Right.
Yeah, and then on and on and on. Well, an album dedicated to pop songs. An album dedicated to another, specific eras and genres.
Right.
Versus decades. I don't know if we're even going to do it, but we're having good success with this, and we had a blast doing it. And one thing about the pandemic is it affords you a lot of time to stay in the studio and woodshed because none of us are out on the road. So we've been spending a lot of time in the studio. I have been. I've already done. I think I've done about 4 albums this year.
Oh wow.
So
wow.
Thanks to the pandemic. The bright side of the pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, right now this is the best time, I think, for musicians to actually tap into what they're creating because this is solitude right now, Yeah.
I mean, people are thinking a little more deeply about things and, about the world we live in and about the results of our behavior and our actions and what defines us and what we want to be and so forth. And that permeates down to your music, or whatever art that you're creating. And I think that you need that kind of well to draw from, when you're drawing from a place of comfort and not a challenging place in your life, your music will reflect that. If you're under duress and you'll have emotionally charged music, that touches people, I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And not to say that you want to put yourself in an uncomfortable position so that the result will be you could make better art, but I think, that there's a bright side to everything. There's a bright side to darkness.
Yes. Oh, I understand that one completely.
By the way, you're in my favorite place in the world.
Am I really? Well, I was going to ask you about that too. So.
Mexico is my heart. You're Santa Fe, right?
Well, I'm from Santa Fe, but I moved to Albuquerque.
Oh, well, I mean, New Mexico.
Yeah.
Mexico.
But I love Santa Fe, and I was born and raised there. Moved to Albuquerque because of a bigger, music scene. I was going to ask you about Shadow Train.
Mm-hmm.
Because Greg Anaya was one of my all-time favorite singers.
Aww.
And, I had an opportunity to meet him, and we were supposed to interview.
Yeah.
But then his untimely passing kind of prohibited that one. So, yeah. But the Shadow Nation, the Shadow Train, all that you've worked on, George, has been such an influence on my life. That's why I'm so tongue-tied. I'm just like, bleh.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you had a chance to check it out. And of course, we did a lot of the work, a lot of the filming and recording in New Mexico. It's a place that I've been gravitating to for 25, 30 years. It's my heart, as I said. I think for some people there's a place that resonates, a sense of place on the earth somewhere that just feels right. And for me, that's New Mexico, without a doubt. And, every time I get on my motorcycle or I get in I've got a Sprinter, 4-wheel drive solar, like RV kind of thing. That's an adventure off-road kind of machine. And every time I get in either one of those, that's where I go. I mean, it's like a magnet, I was like, where do you want to go? Well, I'm going to go east. I'm going to go north. I'm going to go south. No, I always end up going to Mexico. And when I'm there, I'm just so happy. And I just feel so right. I just feel like I'm in the right place in the universe. And not that it's about me, but I'm just saying I just have such a powerful love for the place. To
me, it's a very powerful place.
Mm-hmm.
You could be in Arizona, like I went to Sedona. You could feel the vortex or whatever. But there's just something about New Mexico.
Right. I lived in Arizona for 13 years in Cave Creek, and even then, the place I would go that was even more of that was not even more of that. It was just a whole much realer, deeper, more genuine thing was New Mexico.
Absolutely.
And I from everything from, the land to the air to the feeling to the people and the history and the cultures and everything. It was just a nice, I felt a very comfortable mix ethnically, spiritually, and geographically. I mean, it was just all, you get the high deserts, you get Sangre de Cristos, you get everything, and it's just, I just literally think about it every day. And, I've got all my books, I've got all my real estate stuff. I just keep looking for that place. I was going to build an Earthship. That's what was my dream, with Mike Reynolds, but, it just never happened. And now that I'm a little bit older, I don't feel I probably might be a lot to take on because it's such a physically demanding thing, to build Earthship. They're very, very difficult, labor intensive. It take, years to build one. And I'm 66 and I'm like, I'm in good shape, but still, I don't know if I'm up for that. So now it's kind of down to, well, I want to kind of find that place,
Yeah.
And I'm thinking Taos. We've been pretty much focused on Taos, but there's a lot of other places I love. I love Truchas. You familiar with Truchas?
Have you been to Embudo?
Yeah. Oh, right on the river. Yeah.
Right
sure.
on the river?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, of course. Pinal, Dixon. I like Dixon. But I mean, anything on the high road to Taos. I love all those little Penasco and all the little villages up there, but Truchas especially. But the place that we're kind of focusing on, well, we really love Rama and that whole El Moro country out by Zuni land.
Oh, yeah.
That's really just amazing country. I mean, and I really love the corridor too. Laguna, Pueblo, all kind of in there. Acoma.
Yes.
I love that hole, but you can't, Howleys can't really own anything there, so I won't get to move there. But we spent a lot of time living off the grid when we were working out there. We were on Laguna land and just camped out, kind of in the middle of nowhere, an area called Dripping Springs, which was just beautiful.
So I actually had an experience where I got to live in Mesita, which is the original Laguna. And I got to stay there for about 6 months. And it was one of the most magical, most healing experiences of my life. I mean, it was like I was alone. It was just me and my dog. I didn't have anything else bothering me. It was just me and getting to know who I am. And in the, when they would do their ceremonial dances, they'd pass right by the window, drumming and singing. And then I'd open my door and they'd be dancing right there. So it was so powerful. So powerful.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
And how did you have the opportunity to do that?
So a friend of mine wanted me to manage his band. And at that time, I was going through a lot of transition. And I said, dude, I need to find me a place to stay. And he's like, well, go stay at the Jam Spot. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, but it's on the res. And I was like, I'm down. I'm so down. Please, let's do this. I will manage your band for free. Let's go.
Yeah, there's a lot of sadness in New Mexico. There's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of crime. But, there's also all the wonderful things about it. And the thing about the poverty and the crime is it's the crime is a result of the poverty. And that's a result of not great education and not, diverting resources in the wrong direction and, all kinds of, it's real though. That's what I love about New Mexico. Everything about it is real. Living in Arizona, it's like, it's white-topia. It's like the 5th whitest state. I lived in, Scottsdale is, it's like Salt Lake City,
Right.
It's like, ugh, don't get me, I like all kinds of people. I'm white, but I mean, I want to be in a nice mix of, just want all kinds of people around me. I just think that's healthy and invigorating and the way everybody gets to, it's hard to become a bigot when you're surrounded by all kinds of different people. And
Absolutely. The one thing that I say that if there is anything that's going to change and help the people, it's going to be mental health. That's where all of it stems from, is getting the proper mental health,
Yeah, and if you do have a problem, hopefully the cops won't show up with guns. Have social services that show up that unarmed or trained to deal with that.
Right.
And and the way to find out how to deal with that is to look to countries. I feel look to countries that deal with that kind of stuff, with mental health issues in a successful way, and do what they do. So, what countries are those?
Right.
Sweden and Norway and Denmark and progressive European countries that or maybe some Asian countries, because every country has portion of population with mental health issues.
Yeah.
And you don't criminalize that. That's insane. I have a relative that we have to deal with those issues. Very, very distressing and very hard to deal with. And you can't, almost impossible to deal with on the family level, at some point, when it gets so bad where but definitely don't want the cops showing up because how that can end.
Right. That's the one thing that I like about New Mexico is we go into the medicine men. You go into the heritage of the curanderas, the spiritual healing, And it's kind of like if they could intertwine all that, people would get a little bit more straight. Because they'd realize they're just perfectly imperfect, Yeah,
I think the spiritual component is very important, and I also think that the economic, completely other side of the coin, is important. So you create, more equality.
Yes.
And it's just, so important because really it's the base. Money is the basis of everything. It's just an exchange of energy, a representation of the exchange of energy. And it's obviously wrong for a poor Mexican family of the husband to go out and work in the mines or do some kind of ridiculously difficult laborious job and till he works himself to death with no benefits and with no security and with barely a living wage, where some millionaire his money just makes him money off interest. He doesn't have to work for it, doesn't anything productive for society. I think that's insane. And churches should stand up to that because that's immoral.
Right.
And I think that is really kind of like a basis of everything, because when you think about it, why don't we have mental health care?
Because we don't have enough funds.
Because we what?
We don't have enough funds.
Well, we do have enough funds, but where do we spend the funds and where do the funds come from? So we need a more progressive tax. We need a tax burden, so we tax the rich, and then where do you spend the tax money? So we don't need the world's largest military times 1,000 in the history of the universe to control an empire. Let's fix our own problems, and let's have universal medicine and health and mental health care, and let's make sure we have a safety net. In other words, if we're allowed to have multi-billionaires, which I think is obscene, nobody needs $1 billion, because when you're a billionaire, you've got 100,000 people that have nothing. It's just a necessity. You have to create an underclass to subsidize billionaires. So nobody needs billions. So just progressively tax people so that that money gets funneled back in. Large portion of that money gets funneled back into the bottom, goes back to the bottom, and sustains the social safety net for the people that are falling through the cracks that this sort of economy creates out of necessity, by design. Poor people exist on purpose. People are unemployed on purpose. You'll never hear anybody talk in this country about having 100% employment. Why? Because it contradicts the economic system that we live under. So you always need people out of work to keep wages down.
Yeah.
Anyways, we got way off track.
Oh my God.
But I love talking about all this. I do have calls coming in. Can I take them?
That was really awesome, by the way. That went totally in a different direction, but I want to thank you so much for taking time out and doing this interview with me.
You're very welcome, Melissa.
And
I'm glad we got to talk about other important things besides music, and music is important.
But music is a universal language, and that's been the healer for everybody. So
music is medicine.
Yes, perfect. And I would love to do this again.
I hope so. I got a lot more records coming out, so we'll hook up next time, and hope to see you out there.
Okay, you will.
New Mexico, land of enchantment. Hello. All right, take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hey, this is George Lynch, otherwise known as Mr. Scary, and you are listening to Metal World Radio.